Smoke from the Canada wildfires puts us in a code red air quality alert. Why it could get even worse.
2 stolen vehicles, 4 teens too young to drive under arrest.
They have to be taught a lesson.
Neighbors speak out on holding youth accountable. A proposal for the city's public safety program to issue long-term contracts, why this could make it harder to track how your tax dollars are spent. Mayor Scott on the vandalism of a curfew enforcement van.
Things have happened to vehicles consistently across this world.
The safety concerns as city employees are on the front lines. Major roadblocks in Maryland's plan to give your children a better education.
Are you concerned?
Oh, yes, I certainly am.
The claims that millions of your tax dollars are being spent incorrectly. The power struggles halting progress.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
I have noticed my asthma acting up, and I just thought it was pretty much a seasonal sinus type thing.
This is not the day to train for a marathon or to do an outside event with your children.
Being outside right now is like smoking cigarettes. It's not a joke.
This is a major health alert, folks. Skies over the Midwest and Northeast look really eerie as smoke from Canada pushes its way into the United States.
Air quality alerts are still active tonight across a number of states and here at home affecting millions of people. New York seeing the brunt of it in the past 24 hours. The Big Apple recording the worst air quality in the world at one point. Visibility so bad about 1,000 flights are delayed out of New York and New Jersey. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Several local school systems cancel outdoor recess and activities for the evening due to the conditions. And we're bracing for more smoke arriving into the night and tomorrow. A code red alert is still in effect because the air is potentially dangerous for everyone.
Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers tracking this haze over Maryland and many other states. Jonathan, when will we see any kind of relief from it?
We actually have it in sight, but it's going to be probably worse before it gets better, unfortunately. And, you know, when folks, they see those images and they say, boy, does that look bad? It is bad. And I mean, it's also unhealthy. We do have a code orange, actually code red air quality alert around here. Not only is this abnormal for this time of year, this is just an abnormal type of warning to have around here. Usually, yeah, sometimes during the summer we'll have a code orange alert, which is a step down from this. But this means it's unhealthy for everybody to be outside. And this is now going to be day 2 of this into tomorrow as well. This type of air quality, we haven't seen anything like this since back in 2006, so about 17 years ago. Now you can see the very unhealthy air quality in the red, in the pinkish purple, all evening long. It's been descending back to the south and west. It's around Philadelphia now. It's been up near New York. We're still in the unhealthy range, but I think it's going to get worse overnight into the wee hours of tomorrow morning and by the morning commute. And it's not going to be a good time for a run, that's for sure. Unhealthy air quality, again, code red tomorrow. Then finally Friday, things do improve. I'm going to take a look at the computer model, show you what the latest ideas are on when this is going to get out of here and when it's going to be worst. My Weather Authority forecast.
Jonathan, thank you. Now, as a result of what Jonathan is talking about, health officials are urging people to limit outdoor activity, in particular for those with lung and heart conditions or those who are elderly. Windows in your home should be closed at all times and leave your air conditioning running. That'll help circulate air that you can breathe. If you do have to go out, it's recommended that you get an N95 or KN95 mask to block those particles, those particulates in the air. You're also encouraged to check on those who are vulnerable.
And we are seeing conditions in our neighborhoods. Check this one out. You can see the haze toward the Baltimore skyline. Our viewer Leslie sharing these pictures with us tonight. Fox 45 News has a gallery right now in the smoky conditions we're seeing. You can share yours by heading to foxbaltimore.com/chime in or look for this story on our website.
First on Fox, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott responds to Fox 45 following a curfew van that was vandalized over the weekend in South Baltimore.
It is the first violent incident we have seen since the curfew went into effect 2 weeks ago.
Jeff Abel is live with the latest. First on Fox. Jeff?
Well, the mayor is insisting tonight there will be no changes in protocol, even after vandals shattered a window of a city van with volunteers inside.
We know that vandalism happens everywhere in this country every day.
Mayor Brandon Scott was downplaying today the vandalism of a youth curfew van that happened while youth curfew volunteers were inside.
And we know that things have happened to vehicles consistently across this world. But what we won't do is highlight the extreme.
It was a little before midnight Saturday night here on Denham Circle in Cherry Hill when a city van, very similar to this one, was vandalized, and volunteers inside were forced to retreat. According to a statement from the mayor's office, at approximately 11:34 p.m., an engagement van was attempting to park and engage a group of young people when it was struck by an unidentified object that shattered the back window of the vehicle. Staff immediately followed protocol and notified their supervisor, who instructed them to return to the C.C. Jackson Recreation Center and debrief.
They were probably defending themselves from what they feared. Here you have some people trying to pick them up at night in a white van?
The city's new curfew enforcement effort relies on volunteers, not police, to engage youth. The president of the police union insists it poses a high risk to volunteers, writing today that some of these juvenile curfew violators are in fact criminals. Some don't hesitate to violently engage with the police. Why would they hesitate to do the same with a volunteer?
What we have to do is not sensationalize things.
He's the one that sensationalized it when he came up with this idea of a curfew.
No one inside the van was injured when vandals shattered the rear window, but with summer now beginning, critics fear what else could happen next.
It puts kids at risk, it puts volunteers at risk, it puts police at risk, and it has only exacerbated a bad situation and made it a catastrophe.
Well, so far, no one has been arrested in connection with this incident. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. New tonight, more young people caught up in crime. In Glen Burnie, 2 stolen vehicles identified. 4 teens too young to drive are arrested. Keith Daniels with a neighbor who witnessed all the commotions and the call for accountability tonight. Keith?
Well, Mary, Anne Arundel County Police tell us those 4 teens, 3 girls and 1 boy, face several charges, including auto theft. And tonight, those arrests are raising a familiar issue. It all unfolded outside of the apartments on Juneberry Way near Shekels Road in Glen Burnie. Matthew Darden had just pulled up to his home when he saw and heard the commotion.
I thought it was my mom, so I had to my mom, so I rushed out to see was my mom okay, but you know, she was good.
Several Anne Arundel County police officers had converged on the parking lot. According to police, officers were checking the area at about 11:30 Tuesday night when they saw a 2016 Hyundai sedan parked halfway out of a parking spot. Officers say they saw 4 teenagers get out of the car, went into a home. Police discovered the car had been stolen. Another vehicle parked in another spot, they say, also stolen. Police arrested the teens, 2 of them 14 years old, 2 others 15. For Darden, the incident raising the issue once again over juvenile crime and holding young offenders accountable.
If you do the crime, you got to do the time.
Law enforcement agencies in the area say there's been an uptick in juveniles involved in crime, including homicides and carjackings. News of the arrest of those teens suspected of auto theft in Anne Arundel County comes as Vincent Giraldi, Secretary of the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services, hit the airwaves today on WBAL radio, talking about how he intends to hold juvenile offenders accountable.
I think that it needs to be some combination of what's been tried with this young person before and how serious their offense was. Some of it's data-driven, but some of it's common sense. Like, you can't over and over and over let somebody keep messing up.
It's heartbreaking. It's unfortunate that they had to, go down that road of dishonesty and thievery.
Well, Anne Arundel County Police and the Harford County Sheriff's Office have both been very vocal about the laws that they say make it difficult to hold juvenile offenders accountable. Meantime, Schiraldi has said people as old as 25 years old should remain in juvenile court. Now, Fox 45 News sat down with Schiraldi last month. You can see and hear a full interview about him standing by those comments. Just go to foxbaltimore.com. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Well, during the legislative session, hundreds of bills were passed and then signed by Governor Wes Moore, but not one to hold youth offenders accountable. Last week in Prince George's County, when a 15-year-old accused of trying to kill a student on a school bus was arrested, the state's attorney there said laws may need to change. Excuse me. And even I can't talk.
I'll pick that up, Mary. And even parents should be held accountable when it comes to youth crime.
When you look at what's happening now, the carjackings, the guns that are being recovered are not registered to the parent for the most part. They are illegal guns. And so right now, as it currently stands, there is no mechanism for me to then hold the parent responsible. I think the community is demanding parent accountability and responsibility, and the law should reflect the level of importance that parents play in their child's life.
In Baltimore, the latest tool in the crime fight is a Peacemobile. The Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or MONSE, will deploy the bus to areas after traumatic events. And today, the city's Board of Estimates signed off on the bus driver's salary, more than $80,000. Well, that's more than a newly hired city state's attorney, which is about $75,000. And city police say the starting salary for an officer is just over $60,000. And according to Salary.com, an average paramedic in Baltimore who might respond to the same traumatic scene makes under $50,000. Now, there are unanswered questions. Maryland's attempt to overhaul public education has hit a roadblock, falling weeks behind schedule. As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, implementing the blueprint, also known as the Kerwin Plan, has been riddled with problems. Problems including power struggles and complaints over poor leadership.
Are you concerned?
Oh, yes, I certainly am.
Ike Leggett knows the stakes and expectations are high.
We need to get this right, and we don't need to have mistakes early in the process.
In 2021, Maryland's legislature passed the blueprint for Maryland's future, also known as the Kerwin Plan. The law pumps billions of additional tax dollars into public education while establishing the Accountability and Implementation Board to keep track of it all. Leggett, a former Montgomery County executive, chairs the AIB board, and he says there's been some issues.
So as of now, the implementation of Kerwin is behind schedule?
Yes, about a 5-week delay in the process.
That delay, according to Leggett, is due to a breakdown in cooperation between the AIB board and MSDE as they review all 24 local school systems' plans to implement the blueprint. Leggett said he hoped to have all 24 plans approved by early June. But now he says the plans won't be approved until mid to late July.
People need to recognize that the AIB is the final authority as it relates to the approval of the plans submitted by the local boards of education.
But the rollout has been problematic long before now.
There are some disturbing things that are there.
This audit of the Maryland State Department of Education was released in January by the Office of Legislative Audits, which ran a review of how MSDE safeguards your tax money. The report issued 9 findings ranging from issues with cybersecurity and bidding contracts to how MSDE approves state grants. But the first finding was this: MSDE did not ensure that local school districts used blueprint funds in accordance with the purposes established by state law. Each school system was required to submit a detailed budget on how blueprint funding would be used. But according to the audit, MSDE did not review how your school systems spent your money. That finding, Leggett says, is a concern.
There are some questions that I think needs to be addressed.
MSDE declined an interview with Project Baltimore to discuss the audit, but said in this letter from March that finding is false, adding successful, rigorous, and correct blueprint resource allocation and expenditure is a monumental policy shift, but one MSDE is working diligently to support. MSDE is already moving forward in implementing strong monitoring protocol for blueprint programs.
6% of the students.
But the issues at the State Department of Education run deeper than just this audit.
The problem has also bled into the implementation of the blueprint.
At last month's state school board meeting, former MSDE employee Robert Eccles criticized the department's leadership, saying a toxic work culture is threatening public education in Maryland.
The ongoing unacceptable practices at MSD further embarrass the whole state and his administration.
MSDE has denied the allegations, even though a number of former employees have written letters to the school board with similar complaints. Just last month, Leggett himself sent this letter to local school superintendents addressing the power struggle between MSDE and the AIB board, which caused delays.
Throughout all of this, State Superintendent Chaudhary and MSDE have maintained the department is working in the best interest of the public while properly implementing the Kerwin plan, which is paid for with your money. While Leggett admits the plan is behind schedule and there have been some bumps in the road, he's confident moving forward.
The blueprint is a 10-year plan, and there's an awful lot of money involved in this process. This is a totally new process, and to expect for all of this to go smoothly, especially if you're right out of the box, that's unrealistic. My view is one that's very optimistic that these challenges that we see today we'll be able to work through those.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
The Maryland NAACP is the latest group demanding changes to education. The civil rights group is meeting next week about the, quote, critical status of African-American students. The group points to lagging academic achievement and students graduating without necessary proficiency. In Maryland, 2 of the lowest performing school systems are Baltimore City and Prince George's County, which also have the most African-American students.
This is a situation where African-American children who can learn just like white children or any other children, okay, come into systems and they're not educated.
Well, the Maryland NAACP conference in Linthicum Heights takes place June 15th and 16th. Fox 45 News and Project Baltimore will be there. As we've reported, there's currently a lawsuit against Baltimore City school systems about about the education of students. Renowned civil rights attorney Ben Crump has joined that lawsuit. This past November, a judge denied a request from the city to dismiss the suit filed by a Baltimore couple alleging city schools is wasting taxpayers' dollars. Our award-winning Project Baltimore team will continue to investigate the education your children receive. To see our stories, head to foxbaltimore.com/Project Baltimore right now. A Baltimore father finds out there is no ambulance service as his child suffers a medical emergency. How it happened in a story you're seeing first on Fox. And Fox 45 News is getting answers for a Baltimore woman after her home was mistakenly sold by the city. But her fight isn't over. The money she says she's owed.
From smoky skies to smog, how much can the poor air quality impact your health? I'm Liz Bonus. We share it just ahead.
Fox 45 News is getting answers for a Baltimore homeowner after her house was mistakenly sold by the city.
After our report first aired last week, the city is admitting its mistake. According to the city, the lien that was placed on the home in Northeast Baltimore was actually meant for a vacant home across the street. That lien triggered a tax sale. We are told the city is correcting the mistake and the home is no longer at risk of foreclosure.
The homeowner had to pay nearly $2,900 in penalties. Her spokesperson, Thuru Vignaraja, says admitting blame is only half the battle, but they want the city to refund the money she already paid.
It's not good enough to say something went terribly wrong. Part of your job in City Hall is to set things right. And so when you explicitly acknowledge that you screwed up, to turn around and not say we're going to fix it, that's really disheartening.
In an effort of good faith, the homeowner's buyer has agreed to pay Crawford back for half of the fees, but he says the city should pick up the other half.
I'm Vincent Hill in Cockeysville. This is all that's left of one of the businesses that caught fire around 3 o'clock today. Now coming up at 10:30, a business owner who says he lost everything in that blaze and what's next for him. A
near drowning at a closed city pool, a teenager fighting for their life the warning to others thinking about jumping in.
A child suffering a medical emergency, the family expecting transport to the hospital, but a fire truck arrives. Why that happened, and the parents push for change.
People, if they were to be outside, especially if they're exercising, breathing faster, they're going to be inhaling particulates at concentrations that normal smokers would inhale.
Well, the health alert over parts of the Midwest and Northeast over the quality of the air we're breathing right now. This is video of a plane landing near LaGuardia Airport this afternoon. More than 1,000 flights in the Northeast were delayed, all because of that smoke burning from Canadian wildfires.
That's right, and our region is under a code red alert. I think the smoke got to me earlier in the newscast where I lost my voice a little bit. Something got stuck in my throat. Well, Fox 45 news cameras were out in Canton tonight, and you can see the hazy conditions there. Health officials continue to urge everybody to limit their time outdoors as we experience these conditions.
The code red alert has been extended into tomorrow. We expect more of the smoking conditions overnight. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers will break down what to expect hour by hour in about 10 minutes.
We are updating that breaking news from Cockeysville, where a fire tore through a number of businesses.
And we're hearing from one business owner who fears he's lost everything.
Vincent Hill is live with the very latest. Vincent, you've been out there for hours now.
Yeah, Mary Kai, I'm going to step out of the way and just describe it as destruction. That's what's behind me, of a fire that took investigators 3 hours to put out. Now, that fire started around 3 o'clock this afternoon, and when crews first got here, the flames were so intense they had to actually exit the building for several minutes. When they tried to enter again, the structure actually collapsed on them. Here's how Captain Lynn Stewart describes it.
At this point in time, thankfully, there was reports that when crews got here, there were people running out of the occupancy. Everyone within both storefronts were accounted for. Our personnel were all accounted for. And unfortunately, the building was lost.
And Fox 45 has learned that there was an additional building behind where that fire broke out that also caught fire and collapsed. I talked to the owner of Central Taekwondo, who was devastated by what happened.
I feel devastated. I lost my livelihood, and I have no idea how to go about doing this.
And Park says more than just losing his business, there were pictures of his dad who passed away with his children, which he doesn't know at this time if those actually survived the fire.
And Vincent, we know it is so early in the investigation, but any word tonight on what may have started this fire?
Mary, not yet. Now, I am told that the two young people that were inside this business were able to get out with some dogs, but we don't know what started that fire. We do know over 100 firefighters came to contain this blaze. For now, we're live in Cockeysville. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
A big one. All right, Vincent, thank you. And overnight, 2 people were killed in a fire in Calvert County. The blaze broke out around 3 at a home in Huntington. Firefighters arrived to the home engulfed, and reports of 2 people trapped after trying for 2 hours. The home collapsed. Their identities have not been released as the deaths remain under investigation.
A Baltimore teen is in critical condition after nearly drowning this afternoon at the Roosevelt Park pool in Hamden. Now, the pool wasn't open at the time, meaning no lifeguard was on duty. According to police, a group of teens climbed the fence and jumped into the pool. One person went under in the deep end and didn't come up. A rescue team had to pull that person out of the water. Mayor Brandon Scott says people need to be smarter about swimming safety.
This is something that could have been totally avoidable. A young man is in critical condition fighting for his life because he made a bad decision. We have asked and we have said time and time again, we want our young people, we want everybody in Baltimore to enjoy our pools. That's why they're free. But you have to do that when the pools are open, when there is a lifeguard on duty, because swimming in an unsafe way can cost you your life.
While the person is in critical condition, homicide detectives are investigating. First on Fox tonight, a sobering message from a dad in Baltimore City.
He was told there were no ambulances available as his 7-year-old son, was in the middle of a medical emergency.
Have a backup plan when you call 911. Have a backup plan because they may not show up.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson has the concerns from the family in a story you're seeing first on Fox.
They're keeping a close eye on him, and that 7-year-old is doing better now a week later. But his family still has lingering questions and frustration about what happened when they needed help.
My wife was frantic.
Describing what happened last Tuesday evening.
And our city not just failed my son, they failed us as taxpayers, us as parents.
This Baltimore father of 4, beside himself, still shaking his head over what happened when his family called for help.
My son, he went unresponsive into a seizure, and we had to call 911.
Will Green said after that 911 call, it took about half an hour for help to arrive at their home in Northeast Baltimore. But it was a fire truck that pulled up, he said, no ambulance.
When they showed up, they had no ETA on the EMT that we needed to take my son to the hospital.
Green said it left him no other choice.
We had to load all of our children into the minivan and resort to self-help, which was rushing them to the hospital.
It's definitely frustrating. It's frustrating to our members who got to respond to these calls because they want to get people to the hospital, get the help they need.
President of the Baltimore Fire Union telling Fox 45 News the city's EMS system is one of the busiest per capita in the entire country.
But unfortunately, we live in a society now that 911 is often used for non-emergencies. So our units are always busy.
The fire union saying its first responders are strapped, sometimes putting crews in tough situations, not having the resources or manpower to meet the high demands across Baltimore.
We only have 28 units to respond to emergencies in Baltimore City on any given day. And sometimes that's even less with staffing crisis that we have.
Meanwhile, this dad.
You know, we live in an age where we have access to multiple uses of technology. And we don't have emergency vehicles.
with more questions and frustration as a taxpayer. He had no choice but to rush his 7-year-old to the hospital in the midst of a true emergency.
The emergency services that every taxpayer in Baltimore has the right to, and we were let down by our city.
Now, this dad says he did receive a call from somebody at Baltimore City Fire after he raised concerns with his local city councilman. Meanwhile, we are still waiting to hear back from Baltimore City Fire. We'd like to know how often this is happening and how many ambulances are needed to meet the current demand. In Baltimore, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
The fire union president says the department needs new equipment, and it's been an issue for more than a year. Last week, they brought those concerns to City Hall during budget hearings. The fire department says it has asked the city to use part of the federal COVID money to help offset the cost of the investment. So far, the union says the mayor's office hasn't responded.
Our members were on the front lines doing their job, protecting the citizens. And to know that the city government kind of doesn't really appreciate that, it puts a bad taste in the member, and that could be the huge issue we're having with retention and recruitment.
The mayor's office is tracking the federal COVID money related to the entire $641 million that's now been allocated.
Well, during the budget hearings, Council President Nick Mosby clashed with City State's Attorney Ivan Bates. The disagreement was over plans to prosecute some crimes previous City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby declined to prosecute. Maxine Stryker reports.
We're back in session for State's Attorney's Office.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates is promising to bring accountability back to Baltimore with his new plan to tackle quality of life crimes.
This new initiative is about fundamentally changing attitudes and creating personal responsibility so minor offenses do not lead to more severe crimes.
Bates says his new citation docket to tackle crimes such as trespassing and disorderly intoxication is exactly what residents want after years of lawlessness. It's a stark contrast from his predecessor, Marilyn Mosby, who stopped prosecuting crimes she considered low level during the COVID pandemic, making the policy permanent in March 2021, insisting there was no public safety value in prosecuting such crimes.
Mr. State's Attorney, how many slides do you have in your deck?
At Bates' budget hearing Monday night, Mosby's husband, City Council President Nick Mosby, peppered Bates with questions about the new plan.
Well, what is your office going to do to ensure that it's enforced fairly and equally throughout the city? You're going to also look at it, I assume, from a race perspective as well. And you guys are going to keep those statistics and be able to report out on us as it relates to the citation program.
Yes, that's one of the things we want to do.
Mosby expressing concern with how equitable the citation docket will be. It's one of the reasons Marilyn Mosby made the policy change 2 years ago.
You know why? Because it's disproportionately impacting people of color.
But Bates insists his plan is fair, with the end goal being getting those who needed help through wraparound services.
So much has been done over the past couple of years to start to rebuild trust in our communities, and we just don't want a policy where folks are on different pages to kind of upset that.
Mosby raising more questions with Commissioner Michael Harrison during the BPD budget hearing Tuesday.
The idea that now we're going after and starting to do engagement on low-level citations that was introduced by the SAO, how does that, how will that affect violent crime? How will that affect officer response? How do you handle that just from a sheer capacity perspective?
Again, Mosby echoing his wife's concerns over police resources in 2021.
It's a resource issue, right? And so we can't be counterproductive to the limited resources that we have. And the mayor, the commissioner, and I all agree that those limited resources should be focused on violent crime.
But Harrison says resources will not be an issue in any way.
That was Maxine Stryker reporting. Under Bates' citation docket, first-time offenders will receive up to 5 hours of community service, second-time offenders up to 10 hours. Those who complete the community service will have their cases dismissed. Only those who refuse those services will go to the criminal docket, along with those who reoffend for a third time. Citations will be issued starting June 12th. The first docket will be July 17th. A milestone birthday in Baltimore. Straight ahead, hear from the woman who turned 100 today.
And the most dangerous part of our latest episode of bad air quality and smoke going to be coming through tonight and tomorrow. So make sure you follow these tips. Stay indoors if you can and stay away from strenuous outdoor work and exercise. Being inside in the air conditioning and the way to go. Code red air quality alert continues. I'll let you know when things will get better. Latest computer models coming in just in the past few minutes. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.